All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GOAT Show. I'm please, so happy to have two phenomenal guests here with us today. First, we have Mr. the infamous and the legend from andgo Sports, person who changes many people's lives and is also a special dear friend of mine. Let's get a big round of applause, please, for Mr. Scott Knight. Scotty, how you feeling, brother?
Well, Mookie, thanks for having us. Appreciate you as always.
Of course. And we have a celebrity in the house. Some people say New York finest, coming out of preseason, I should say. And obviously hailing from, Boston College as well as Clemson. We should say a national champion is in the building. Scott, you won a national champion before?
No, that's ping pong all the time.
Let's get a big round of applause for the Futbolr, Callum Johnson. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to get talking and sharing some of my experiences.
Definitely. Obviously, we're here because we wanted to highlight college soccer, and the journeys that many have taken to come to this point. And one of the reasons I asked Scott to come on is because Scott does a phenomenal job, obviously him and Marco, with andgo Sports. And I'd love for Scott, if you get a chance to give us a little bit more information about the company and also the services you guys provide.
Yeah, so we're in the aspect of trying to help kids move from club and high school into university. We're helping players move across categories at the youth level as well. We're moving players domestically and internationally. We're moving players abroad to play internationally. We're moving players into the country from international into domestic, as well as the domestic players into college. So all categories of youth, working kids at the local levels, as well as nationally across the country, West Coast to East Coast. And we were fortunate enough to know Callum, as an example, was part of us when he was at BW Gottschee, then over to Red Bulls. Was able to work with him and his brother, Christian, into Boston College, right? And then big piece of that with Callum over to Clemson. We know the family well. Father is a fantastic person, and super excited for Callum right now with what's going on at LA.
Before we get into Callum, I want to be honest with you. I hear about all these college recruitment services, and Callum, you can back me up as well. Some of these people, they sell you on dreams, and they make you spend thousands of dollars, and basically you just put up a Facebook page, and they don't really have no type of personalized touch to it. And one thing I've seen from Scott and andgo Sports is continuously, not only do they know about the player and what he does well, and work with them step by step, but also the family. And it's so important that he's able to talk to these coaches not only about the person on the field, but off the field. Scott, you do that so well. Callum, tell me a little bit about how you got involved with Scott. I know Scott's a Gottschee guy. That's where I know Scott from. But tell me a little bit about your experiences dealing with andgo Sports. And I want to go back from the start. I know you had an older brother, and obviously you knew a little bit about the college recruitment. But some of these people who are watching are very nervous, right? As you were at one time, about getting recruited from colleges and what things you need to do.
Yeah, so I think my older brother Christian, he met Scott through BW Gottschee and his former coach, Miguel Brenego. And Christian had a lot of success reaching out to schools and managing those relationships. And Scott was a big part of that. So I think Scott actually knew me before I knew him. The first time I met him was, I think I was 13 years old. I think it was maybe freshman year of high school. And we just won the NICE state championship. And
what school did you go to?
Funny collegiate in the upper west side Manhattan.
Yes. Okay.
And this funny looking guy comes up to me after the game, and he says, "Great game, Callum." And I was like, "Well, who are you?" And then he introduced himself, and I was like, "Oh yeah, of course I know him." And then that was sort of the beginning of our relationship. we didn't start talking to colleges right away. Obviously, that happened later. End of sophomore year, junior year of high school. And yeah, my dad was very fond of him, and I think what Scott brings, which is so important, is he genuinely likes to understand his players. He understands the soccer side of it, and like you said, he knows families and gets to know every part of their life. But then, where it becomes really helpful for the player is that he has relationships with schools and coaches, and it's they like him, genuinely like him. So it's more of a natural conversation between him and colleges, and it sort of helps bridge that gap between the recruit and the coach.
Yeah, man. Let's go back a little bit in terms of what you were looking for in schools, and just in terms of how does that play step by step working with andgo. Did you have to tell them, like, send them a list first? I know Scott has certain things that he wants you to do to provide for him to be able to do what he does best.
So I was always pretty fond of my education, and
not to cut you off, but you don't have a New York accent, man. Tell a little bit about that.
I don't know what accent I have. It's a little bit English, American, Australian. Some people say South African.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I don't know. I've lived in all those countries except South Africa.
Wow.
But yeah. So no, I am a real New Yorker though. I've been there since I was 2 years old. So New York is my home. But so I think what was the question again? Sorry, you cut me off with the New York stuff.
In terms of the step-by-step process, what we're trying to highlight here is show the difference between the services that andgo Sports does than these regular internet services that puts everybody in one bubble, right? So did you have to tell Scott what schools you were interested in first?
Okay, yeah. So I decided to sort of take the initiative. I wrote an initial draft of schools that I would like to consider. I didn't know much about them. And then Scott came back with, okay, I like that list. Now here's 20 more schools that you might want to consider as well. And then so we have this big list, right? Because you have the big thing about colleges, you have no offers until you have a certain offer. So you can't rule anyone out.
Yes.
And you got to be careful. Coaches talk, coaches move around a lot. So you have to be respectful and polite to every coach.
Huge point.
So then we kind of just went through it. He would tell me about the schools that he knew, the coaches he had strong relationships with, and then it's just, you talk to these guys and you meet them in person, and then a lot of questions are answered, and then slowly you narrow it down. And I think what Scott does and what andgo does well is that they kind of it's like a temperature check, right? They always understand where it is, the relationship. Like he knows if they're genuinely interested or if they're just talking to me to keep me around.
Yeah.
And you can't get that sense as a player sometimes, because not everyone's going to be honest with you.
So true.
But they might be honest with a personal friend.
Definitely. And I know it's many years ago, but tell us a little bit about your last 3 schools you were thinking about before choosing Boston College. Because you were a phenomenal player. I remember watching you beat up Gottschee. I mean, you were like De Bruyne out there. You know what I mean? And I call you a visionary. Yeah.
Let me add to that a little bit, right? Like it's easy when they're good players, right, Mookie?
Yeah.
It's easy when they're good kids. It's easy when they're good families, right? Definitely. So Christian's move to BC, right? Christian was a result of, Callum's move to BC was a result of Christian, right, Callum?
Okay, he went there previously, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Christian went first. We helped Christian get into there, and then he already had the relationship with the father, and Christian was moving in that direction already. Where we were able to help out Callum after Christian was Callum moving into Clemson. So Callum had finished his education, had eligibility remaining, and then it was a big move for him. And
huge move.
Eddie gave the blessing. Yeah. Eddie gave the blessing, right, Callum?
Yeah, he did.
and then from there, like I said, Callum being the quality player he was and is, and what he was able to build in the ACC, had huge numbers in the ACC, and then it was about finding that right move for Callum based on his objective.
Correct.
Right, Callum? And it was about a really specific choice for a specific reason, and it was clear what the objective was. So it was, again, I repeat it, it's easy. Callum made it easy because he's a very good player, but also more importantly, he's a very good person. And let's not forget about the piece as a student. Was a rock star as a student.
So Callum, you go to BC and your brother's already there. You have a relationship already with the coach. But did you catch an injury in
I
BC?
did. Yeah, I had hip surgery my junior year going to senior season. So I ended up having to sit out that year and redshirt, which is one of the best things about college, is that if you are medically exempt from sports, then you could take that fifth year somewhere else. Or you could, do it at the same school. But for me, it was...
But listen, you got a chance to win a national championship coming off adversity of messing up your damn hip.
Exactly. Now, for me, it was all about, like Scott said, my clear objective after 3.5 years at Boston was, I want to become a professional soccer player. Now, how do I give myself the best chance of doing that?
Yeah.
And so I put everything aside and I just looked at the best soccer schools in the country with best coaches, because I work well with relationships. And that's where Scott helped me out. He gave me Pittsburgh, Clemson, Syracuse, and Akron. Those were the final 4 that we decided on. All established programs, good coaching staff. And, I felt right at home at Clemson from the start, and I happened to choose Clemson, and it just worked out unbelievably well for me.
So you didn't graduate yet from BC, did you?
I did. I graduated early. That was the other decision
that was it. Okay.
I made.
That's the only reason why you can go to another ACC school, right? To transfer?
That's right.
The reason I could go to another ACC school, is because I graduated early. Exactly.
Because you've been battling against Clemson for 3 years. I mean, I know I've seen games either scoring or assisting against Clemson, and that's a tough decision to go to another school that you know that you will have to go against BC again. How did you? I know you were focused and you want to become a professional, but I'm sure that was a tough decision. Tell us about what you went through mentally making that.
Yeah, it was really tough. And it was also, I wasn't sure Clemson were gonna like me because I scored against them when I was at BC.
Exactly. Nobody doesn't forget anything, by the way.
No,
Mike, don't forget.
But but it turned out that helped me. But no, being honest, Clemson was always one of those places that whenever we played at, it was like, wow, this place is unbelievable. This is the dream school. I think everyone on the team deep down wanted to play for Clemson because
that stadium,
the atmosphere, the crowd, the stadium, the facilities, the staff, it was like soccer mecca. So and I just was put in a position where I was lucky enough that I could be able to do that.
How great was preseason now in South Carolina compared to Boston? Did it help your touch? I just want to know. Did it help your touch?
Serious humidity right there.
Okay, it's a funny question. It's about 2 months longer. You arrive very, very early in the summer, and the first thing you do is run 3 miles in 18 minutes around a track. But it's good because it gets the physical stuff out the way, so that when the season starts, you're only worried about the soccer stuff. And it's the best way to do it. But you can only get that kind of buy-in and commitment from players if you're consistently producing top-level players, and you're producing pros and you're producing championship-winning teams.
There you go. The focus from day one is to win the championship. Let's go a little bit back again. We want to help out the next generation of players come out of BW Gottschee as well as New York City. You going to playing for two different schools gives you a great, person to speak to when making the decision on what's the best school for you. And I want to give you some things that I tell kids. I want to know what you think about. For instance, I always tell kids it's best to go to a school that's recruiting you than you recruiting the school, if that makes any sense. Scott, I'd love to hear your point of view on that. Does that make any sense? I'm not as clean as Scott, so I use talking to a female, or somebody you're trying to court, a guy or female, doesn't matter, that you're trying to court. And I always suggestion is you should make sure that person wants you a little bit more than you want them. How does that play in, and what do you think about that statement? Scott, you first.
Yeah, I think it's completely accurate. I think the biggest piece with all of this is you need to understand who you are, right, Mookie? You need to understand where you are in the scope of things. So if you understand that, your level, your quality as a player, your style as a player, academically, who are you, right? GPA, SAT, ACT. What's the family looking for in terms of a distance, a location, and then lastly, the budget, right? These places aren't free. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of take all that into consideration and understand how you fit. And then from there, yes, you'd be courting the right person for the right reasons. And those people being interested in you, right? Because you're in that right ballpark of who you are, as opposed to be playing in a field that you are not anywhere near or prepared for.
Definitely.
I think in Callum's situation, right, back to my point at BC, he did it, right, Mookie? He had production. There was history there. So to Callum's point about him scoring against Clemson, I remember Noonan and Jones, Callum saying to me was, please, we don't want to play against them again. So,
but Callum, such as myself, who had older brothers, we kind of had a cheat sheet where we kind of knew what to expect from the next generation. Callum, you've seen players come in both schools who were highly decorated or just didn't fit, right? What advice would you give a player who has to make a decision about a school? I'd love to hear your point of view on how to choose or how to go about it.
Yeah, well, I think Scott's given the right answer, which is it's about fit. And every player is different. Now, I think there's certain criteria that are more important than others. The number one thing for me is relationship with the coach. And it's so hard to get right, because you don't have much time with him in the recruiting process. And it can be difficult. But I think where I was lucky was I have good judgment and sense of character, which helped me a lot. So
that's a New Yorker in
you. New York makes you tough.
It makes you tough. That's the Manhattan in you, brother.
Yeah. No, you learn who's just saying the right things to say the right things and who actually means it. So it's about finding the right fit. But what I will say is that if you do have a dream, and this is back to your point of, right, if a school is, if you're trying to win someone over, like you're not always going to have schools that are more interested in you than you are in them. That's just not, it's not always going to be that lucky. And I think if you do have a dream school, or you are just so set on a certain school or a coach or whatever, then you got to go the extra mile and push to make that happen, and then back yourself to win him over and win his trust. So I think there's that aspect of it as well.
How much do you think playing at the Red Bulls Academy helped your recruiting process compared to if you would have stayed at BW Gottschee?
Well, actually, I was recruited entirely before I went to Red Bulls. Gotcha. So all the exposure I got was from Gottschee.
So it didn't increase for other schools when you went to Red Bulls?
Yeah, it did. It did. It would have, but I'd already committed.
Oh, okay.
And so Gottschee gave me definitely enough of a platform to showcase myself and pretty much talk to any school in the country I wanted to, just from Gottschee. And then obviously Red Bulls, they attract all the big eyes and big schools, but it's not always best to be in those programs. I think a lot of schools and coaches appreciate sort of that blue collar work ethic that Gottschee instills in you from a young age.
Paul, this turns into a BW Gottschee commercial, so I want to make sure you put this on the website. Let's talk about the Red Bulls team. Obviously, you guys like Noah Powder and stuff like that going early to become pro. Did that put a fire in your back, or did that make you see that you can do it as well, and this is the path that you need to kind of focus on now? Did that make it a little more urgent?
Yeah, it's a good point. I know Noah Powder well, and obviously I played with him at Red Bulls, and he's doing great things. From the day he left the academy to right now, 5 years later. But that's rare. A lot of people will not have that success, and it's credit to him because of his hard work. But for me, at that time, when I was 18, I wasn't good enough to go pro. I wasn't physically athletic enough, and I wasn't mature enough. I think I still had so much to learn. And if I had tried to have gone pro then, I don't think I would have made it, or I definitely wouldn't have been as good as I am now. So it was about going to college and continuing to develop all those aspects of my game that I just mentioned. And now I'm a much better player than what I was then, because I was allowed to mature and allowed to grow at college. So there's no one path to success, to the pros, and to success. But whatever it is, when you do have the opportunity, you just got to do everything to take it.
Well said, man. Beautifully well said. Yeah, the struggle is, we have all these, obviously, young footballers that Scott and myself are around who will desire to play at the highest level, but everybody cannot play at Clemson or even play at Boston College. Scott, how do you deal with being real but not killing a kid's dream, like Callum just spoke about? If I'm a kid who doesn't play on Red Bulls, I might play on the MLS Next team, or I might play with an ECNL team, but I think that I'm good enough to play at Clemson. How do you deal with that, Scott? And what do you tell them?
Well, first, I think we're always honest. My coaches were always honest with me. My family was always honest with me. So I think you can be honest with an athlete without killing anybody. The other piece I would tell you is there's really good places out there that are not Clemson, that are not Pittsburgh, that are not Boston College, right? That are not in the first division. There's very good places that are in the second division and the third division, junior colleges, right? Sure. There's amazing people out there. Everybody's path is different. So not every player in the MLS went through college. Not every player in the MLS came through an MLS academy, and same thing for USL and NISA and all those professional carriers, MLS too, right? There's a lot of different pathways. So everyone has an opportunity. To Callum's point, development happens at a different time, at a different place for all. And it's where can you go to get the best experience to grow and mature and develop? And it's not just on the field either, right, Mookie? It's off the field as well. So there's no right or wrong. And I think it's about being real and realistic with a player. Here's the other thing. Is it better to go to Clemson or Boston College and sit the bench?
For 3 years. Some
on the road trip? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or is it better to go to another choice in any one of those categories and play all the minutes or play more minutes?
And like Callum said, some people might sit 3 years on the bench, have one good year and make it, and some might be too late. before we get into the fun part of winning the national championship and getting drafted, you spoke on feeling like you wasn't physically ready to be a pro. Do you think there's anything different you could have done as a junior in high school or as a senior in high school that could have maybe prepared you better, or you just had to grow into it?
I'm sure there are little things that I didn't know then that I know now. Just in terms of like sports science, right? Instead of focusing on push-ups and sit-ups, it's more hips and groins, that kind of stuff. But for me, it was just my body didn't develop until later. I guess I had not so great genes there, so I didn't develop physically until the
South
later.
African in him.
And I think I was a little prone to injury, so that didn't help. Right, every time I'd be getting full fitness, I'd get injured, and that was a nightmare. So for me, it was actually that hip surgery really changed the trajectory of my career, because, knock on wood, I haven't had a hip injury since that for 3 years. So that was a bit of luck that I could have that successful surgery. But also just, it took time for me to grow into my body. And that's something you can't control, right? You can do everything you can try to, but I think that's where it goes wrong for a lot of parents, watching their children play, because, they want them to be good right now. But I see this because I was coaching this past summer, and I was coaching, I think it was 11-year-olds. So some of them are getting pretty big and dominating, but some of the best players are still tiny, and their parents are like, well, freaking out. Well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? She's like, just relax. Just let it happen. I looked like that until I was 18, so he's doing fine.
They have no patience, man. No patience. Let's get into this incredible season that I'm sure is a little rocky, right? It's like you guys were undefeated and everybody knew you guys were going to win, but you do have the pressure every season to compete for the national championship. Tell us a little bit about personally your season and the ups and downs you went through, or the adversity you have faced, or tell us a little about how you mentally got through the season.
Yeah, this season was it was definitely ups and downs. It was pretty tough because I was asked to play a role in the team that I wasn't entirely comfortable with. I was playing out of position almost every single game.
Can you say which role that was?
Yeah, so I'm a center midfielder by trade, but I played both outside forwards, and I played center forward, number 9. Now, I'm working on that. I'm working on getting better at those positions, but I can tell you right now, and I know my coach would say the same, Noonan, that I'm a better center midfielder than I am those positions. But I just had to. I'd rather play than not play. So exactly. I would do anything to play, and I was just willing to learn as much as I can about those roles and play those positions. So that was tough, right? Playing games when you can impact the game more from center midfield, but we just didn't have both our starting center forwards tore their ACL.
Crazy.
So right at the beginning, so we couldn't, and our other center midfielders couldn't play up top.
Yeah,
that just was not their skill set. Now, I'm not saying I could play up top, but I could probably do it better than they could. So that was tough, surely, because I had to consistently remind myself it's the team before me. You got to put the team before yourself here every day, and that's tough because this is the year that you're getting. This is the most important year. You're trying to get drafted, and that's why I thought, you know what, I might not get drafted here because I played out of position the whole year, and it would take a special coach to see that. And luckily, the national championship game, I played center mid, and I played pretty well, and that's where Galaxy saw me. So the few games that I did play center mid, I was really good, which helped. But yeah, it was a tough season. But the most important thing was that we weren't the most talented team individually, for sure, but we had the best work ethic, team spirit, and we had 8 seniors who were desperate. I'm telling you, absolutely desperate to win the national championship. And that's how we got it done.
What do you say the difference between last year and this year as a team and also you individually. Did you do anything different this year that you felt that either preparing or during the season that you was able to perform so amazingly during the Final Four?
I think last year's failure of being knocked out in the Sweet 16 propelled us into victory this year. And I think we were a little bit burnt out last season. We were tired mentally, physically when it came to the end of the year. And I think the coaches did a better job of maintaining a steady progress throughout the season. We didn't go 100 miles per hour in the first month because we knew it was going to be a long season. So that helped. And individually, I just learned the little things. I think every day I'm learning more and more about myself and how to get the most out of me as a player. And I'm obsessed with the controllables. And I think I've become really good at controlling the things that I can control and ignoring the things that I can't. So little things like I'm a psycho when it comes to I go to bed at the same time every single day before training. And I wake up at the same exact time, have the same breakfast, so that I know exactly how my body is going to feel. And that's going to be good. So I think that's what happened. That was the difference in my 2 years. I became really good at figuring myself out and how well I respond to things.
Now, that's amazing. It's so helpful, especially to the younger athletes. Now, going into the draft, did you get a chance to? Well, obviously you were in the Final Four. So you didn't get a chance to do the MLS, the new combine they do. What were your agent, Scott, or people that around you telling you about your possibility of being drafted? Because it's very nerve-wracking. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So our coach always said the better the team does, the better you'll do individually, and we always believe that, right? If we win the national championship, it gives us all the best chance of being drafted high up. And he was right, because 6 people got drafted. One person got drafted the year before who was still playing on the team. And then another kid who didn't get drafted just signed with the first team, potentially an MLS team. So that's 8 guys from that starting 11 who are looking at MLS teams right now. So I put the sideshow during the tournament. I didn't think about the draft. I was just focused on the team. Now, when it became around draft time, my whole mindset was maybe a little pessimistic, but it was, I don't expect to get drafted because historically that hasn't been my route. Historically, my route has been start from the bottom, work your way up, earn the respect of people around you, and you'll make it. Right at Clemson, when I came to Clemson, I didn't start at the bottom, but I had to earn people's respect. I had to earn that starting spot. So I would say to people, if I get drafted, that's great because I'm desperate to play. But if not, that's all right. I'll take another route and I'll get there eventually. And that was my outlook. I didn't really listen to what anyone else said. People said, yeah, you're going to get drafted. I said, how can you possibly know that? I've seen players that are 10 times worse than me get drafted. I've seen 10 players that are 10 times better than me not get drafted.
Well, listen, like you said, and Noonan hit it on the head. It helps when you win the national championship, right? But Callum, you are a legend, and
no, I'm not.
Watching you grow up, watching you play for BW Gottschee growing up, it's beautiful to see that your hard work and determination got you the success that you are dealing with now, feeling now. The feeling you're in a preseason is still, you have a long way to go, but it's been beautiful watching your road and your journey. And like Scott said, you come from a great family, so that's where it starts from, man. Scott, everybody knows you're a legend, so this is why it's called the GOAT Show. And it's good people doing great things in the world of football. And Callum, we'd love to follow up after preseason, when you middle of the season, just to see how you're going as a pro, as a professional, living in LA. From my experiences, from having best friends playing on the Galaxy, stay away from Hollywood. Don't go to too many brunches on Sundays, and find a good taco spot. No, but it's you enjoy it, and I'm so excited to see your 10 years as a pro and where this journey takes you, man.
No, Mookie, thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I didn't bore any of the listeners.
You drop gems on them, brother. You drop gems on them.
No, trust me, I have not a lot of wisdom to share. But no, thank you so much for having me. It's been unbelievably great and good talking to Scott again. And this is fantastic, and I'll be happy to join you guys whenever you want.
Beautiful, beautiful. Mr. Knight, please take us away. What's your last final words?
Mookie, we can't thank you enough. Legend, you are. Absolute legend, man. The voice of New York soccer. Thank you so much.
And where can we, to the listeners who wants your services as well as Marco and the Andgo Sports, where can we find you guys?
Yeah, Marco does a great job on Instagram. You can find us there. Website is andgosports.com. And you can usually find us around the field, all over New York, scouting, watching games, at training sessions, speaking with parents, speaking with coaches, speaking with families and players. So, and
it's just not New York. This is worldwide. If you're watching this from Europe and you want to get to play college soccer in America, this is the way to go, right? And Go Sports. If you're domestically, I don't care where you are, and you want somebody who knows the coaches personally, right? This is not a computer generator who's just out there sending emails that you could be doing. I hate these recruiting apps. I hate these recruiting websites. They steal your money. But Andgo, we bring you legit stuff here, and these guys are not only legit, they do it for the right reasons, and they're making a difference in the game, just like Callum is going to make in the MLS coming up this season. So thank you for everybody for listening. Much love to the family, and we see you in LA. Me and Scott, we get the jet going. Scott, we out.
Let's go.
All right, take care.
We'll be on your jet.
Take care, guys. All right.
Appreciate you. Ciao.